Flaithbertach Ua Néill was king of Ailech, a kingdom of northwest Ireland. He abdicated in 1030 and undertook a pilgrimage to Rome, for which reason he was known as Flaithbertach and Trostáin. Following the death of his son Ailech in 1033, Flaithbertach left his retirement and resumed the leadership of the Northern Uí Néill. Background: Flaithbertach, a grandson of Domnall Ua Néill, belonged to the Northern Uí Néill branch of the Northern Uí Néill. The later O'Neill kindred, kings of Tyrone and later earls of Tyrone, descended from Flaithbertach's branch of Uí Néill, and were named for his great-great-grandfather Niall Glundub. The rival MacLachlan branch of Uí Néill, which would be important in the generations after Flaithbertach's lifetime, probably descended from Niall Glundub's brother Domnall mac Ailech. Most of the province of Ulster, from the River Bann in the east to the River Foyle in the west, was ruled by Uí Néill and the many clients, of whom the Ailech were the most important. Their own lands included much of modern County Tyrone, which bears the name, extending from Loch Nate to Loch Foyle and northwards to Inishowen. To the east lay the Kingdom of Ulster, reduced to little more than modern County Down and southern County Antrim. To the west, Tyrconnell was divided among the branches of another Uí Néill kindred, Uí Néill, and to the south the Kingdom of Bryfna and the Kingdom of Maid. The Uí Néill kings of Ailech were named for the Guianan of Ailech, a stone-built Iron Age fortress which may have been the site where kings were inaugurated in early times. By the 9th century, however, Uí Néill power had extended eastwards, into lands which had once belonged to the Kingdom of Ulster and the Ailech, and kings were inaugurated at Tullidgeog and buried at Armagh. While not directly under the control of the kings of Ailech, Armagh was subject to their influence, and it is recorded that the kings kept a house there. Although the ecclesiastical province of Armagh was divided at Synod of Calls-Mellifont in 1152, its authority over the churches of the northern centre of Ireland in Flaithbertach's time was much greater, as shown by the earlier boundaries between provinces established at the Synod of Flaithbertach in 1111, which divided Ireland between Armagh and Cashel. Armagh was not only St. Patrick's city, it was also in some measure the city of Uí Néill. Other major churches in the region, those established as sees following the 12th century reforms, included the Columban churches of Derry and Rathie, and the patrician churches of Louth, Maghera and Connor. Before Clontarf, the date of Flaithbertach's birth is not certainly known, but his father Muirchetage was killed in 977 by Amlaib Cuarang. A late addition to the Annals of Ulster claims that Flaithbertach was born that same year. His mother was Crescent Cumul of the Uí Main. His grandfather Domnall Ua Néill, High King of Ireland, died in 980, and the kingship of Ailech passed first to Fergal mac Domnall mac Conaring, who perhaps abdicated in 989 and died in 1001. Fergal was followed, perhaps after an interval of some years, by Flaithbertach's uncle Ailech mac Domnall, who is said to have been but 29 years of age and in the 10th year of his reign at his death in 1004. The first report of Flaithbertach is in 1005 when he led a raid on Leithcathal, part of the Kingdom of Ulster, where the king of Leithcathal, Ailech mac Tomltaig, was killed. kill. Flaithbertach raided Cathal again in 1007, killing Aed's successor Cuaulad, and undermining the settlement imposed in 1005 when Brian Borumha came to Armagh with a great army and received Flaithbertach's submission. Brian returned in 1006 and again in 1007, on which occasion he removed some of the hostages Flaithbertach had obtained from Ulster into his own keeping, by force according to the annals of Innisfallen. Perhaps at about this time Flaithbertach married Brian's daughter Beacutbin. The children included Aed and Domnall. Flaithbertach continued to act aggressively towards his neighbours. He had a king of Cneacutel Conail blinded and put to death in 1009, and raided the Midlands as far as the lower reaches of the River Boyne later in the year. These actions brought Brian back north in 1010, again receiving Flaithbertach's submission and taking hostages from Cneacutel Néill back home to Kincora. Cneacutel Conail was invaded in 1011, this time Flaithbertach acting as Brian's ally, his army accompanying those of Brian's sons Domnall and Murchad. A second expedition by Brian himself late in the year received the submission of Cneacutel Conail. Flaithbertach, however, had returned to his old ways and again attacked Ulster, capturing Dunechtaich and receiving the submission of the Ulster over King Niall mac Dubh Duine. He attacked Ulster and Cneacutel Conail again in 1012. In 1013 Flaithbertach raided into the kingdom of Mide, ruled by former High King Maelgech Nall mac Domnall. The two armies met near Kells, but Maelgech Nall withdrew his army without fighting. This seemingly minor event appears to have led Maelgech Nall's neighbours to believe him weak and vulnerable, and a war with Leinster and Dublin followed. The war ended at the Battle of Clontarf on the 23rd of April 1014, where Brian Borumha was killed, although his armies and Maelgech Nall's defeated the Leinster men and Dubliners. After Clontarf, with Brian dead, Maelgech Nall and Flaithbertach embarked on a series of campaigns which re-established Maelgech Nall as High King. According to the Cogaged Hel Regala, a work of propaganda composed in the time of Brian's great-grandson Muirchetage in 1002, shortly before Brian replaced Maelgech Nall as High King, Maelgech Nall had offered to resign the High Kingship in favour of Aed mac Domnall, Flaithbertach's uncle and predecessor as King of Ailech, in return for aid against Brian. The Cogad states that Aed refused and that no help came to Maelgech Nall from Cneacutel Néill and the north, only from Connacht. What caused Flaithbertach to support Maelgech Nall where his uncle had not is unknown. Maelgech Nall died in 1022. Flaithbertach campaigned in the Midlands in 1025 and received the submission of Dublin, but Donchad mac Brian did likewise in 1026, and Flaithbertach also that same year, but Dublin appears to have been easy prey for Niall mac Eochada. The King of Ulster also raided Dublin in 1026. That year Ulster was raided, and Cneacutel Conail the next. Flaithbertach was by this time over 50 years old. His son Domnall died in 1027 and in 1030 he went on pilgrimage to Rome, returning home in 1031. For this he obtained his byname, Flaithbertach and Trostáin, that is, Flaithbertach of the Pilgrim's Staff. That year Niall mac Eochada raided Telachog while Flaithbertach's son Aed undertook a raid in reprisal. Also in 1031 Flaithbertach and Aed raided the south part of Cneacutel Conail. At about this time Flaithbertach abdicated, being succeeded as King of Ailech by Aed, but Aed died on the 30th of November 1033. Flaithbertach left his retirement and became king again. The annals of Innis Fallon say, Flaithbertach Ua Néill took Ailech again, and the north of Ireland submitted to him on account of seniority. Quote, however, it may be that it was not the death of Ailech which led to Flaithbertach's recall, as the southern annals of Innis Fallon place this event only after the death of Domnall Ua Néill Dóraid of Cenech Conail. Flaithbertach's second reign was seemingly uneventful. He died in 1036 as king of Ailech. Flaithbertach is not included in modern lists of high kings. Nonetheless, some medieval writers identified him with a king included in the list of high kings in Bailyn scale, and it may be that he is included in the verse history of Irish and Scottish kings in prophetic style called the Prophecy of Berchan. Both of these sources are problematic, and neither is generally relied upon for Irish king lists, unlike the much earlier Bailchuin, on which they are modelled. Perhaps most conclusively, the historical poems of Flaithbertach's contemporary Flann Mainistrech and the compilers of the Pro-Ua Néill chronicles at Armagh do not recognise him as a high king. Following Flaithbertach's death, his descendants were eclipsed by the MacLachlan cousins. The last of the family was recorded in the annals in the 1080s, after which they disappear. Because of this, several Irish academics such as Francis John Byrne believe the true O'Neill descendants of Niall Glundrub no longer held any power anywhere in Ireland, and that their alleged 12th century descendant Aidian Maisium Tollesque was of unknown ancestry and only adopted the surname. Indeed, Aid was a puppet king installed by Ruaidri Ua Conne, who partitioned Cenech Neogain between the MacLachlan and Aid in 1167. Most current bearers of the surname O'Neill claim Aid as their ancestor.